He turned out to be a racist, and he was going race by race, and then he very casually opened the glove box and pulled out a serrated knife. I was like, I'm gonna die, but also I was like, I deserve to die.
Karan Soni, welcome to Rock Bottom.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Of course, thanks for having me.
You walked here.
I did walk here, yeah.
Which is impressive in Los
walked.
Angeles.
Yeah. I walk anywhere within an hour.
Anywhere with so this is like a policy.
Yeah, but 61 minutes? No.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Immediately out.
Yeah.
What's
then
the longest?
my brain can be like, it's fine. Otherwise, the talk in my head is like, you failure, you disgusting. So yes, under 60 minutes, I'll walk.
50 minutes is a long time for your brain to be saying that.
There's a lot going on up there. But yeah, I love, I grew up in Delhi, like a very urban area, but there wasn't a lot of like places to walk. There's not a lot of pedestrian stuff or anything. So when I first came to LA, to America, I just remember being like, oh my God, look at this beautiful sidewalk. To me, these LA sidewalks are still beautiful.
Yeah.
And the weather's nice. So I was just like, I want to do this. And then I don't mind driving, but I just feel very at peace when I walk versus driving. Although nowadays in LA, walking is getting a little precarious because there's a lot of characters out on the streets. And it does sometimes feel like you're in a crazy video game where I'm like, oop, that's ahead. I'm going to cross the street. Because I never used to be like, someone's going through something, an unhoused person. I'm like, I'm going to walk by them. Like, it's fine. Then my friend got assaulted by someone. Not clearly in the right mind, but she walked by him. He broke a glass bottle. He was like yelling to himself, all this stuff. He came out of nowhere in her face, almost in the eye. She had to get plastic surgery, all this stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And she posted the photo and she was like, this was 2-3 years ago in Hollywood. And she said, I would just recommend, like, every instinct in her was like, I probably shouldn't walk by this person. I don't know what's going on. But she kept going. So now I'm the first one to be like, nope. I'm just zigzag. So it's become less meditative and more just, yeah. And I learn lines by walking. I cannot memorize unless I'm moving. It's this really weird thing. So I truly look unhinged out there.
You're just walking down the street talking to yourself.
Talking to myself, yeah. But I've done some wild things. Like I've walked under freeways there's like near the LA River. Like I'll walk to Atwater Village, Glendale from Los Feliz, if people know it. And there's a very intense freeway, the 5, whatever. And cars are coming on and off really fast. There's no like real pedestrians ever, but there is technically a walkway. But I have to like really gesture. It's really scary. Yeah, it's really scary.
And there's a little walkway across the 5 that just is like fenced in so that you can't like accidentally hurt yourself.
Because they're not used to defend the cars. They're not used to anyone walking in these streets. So they're just like, what is happening? Yeah.
It's impressive. It's also sort of cosplaying New York City. It's like I'm in LA, but I kind of am pretending like I live in New York and can walk everywhere.
Yeah. When I was before my sophomore year of college, I came out here to go to USC for school. But my sophomore year, I did the New York Film Academy, this program, and I arrived in New York. I was very excited, and I got to baggage claim, and this older man was like, taxi? And I said, yeah, I do need a taxi. And he just grabbed my suitcase and just started leading me into the parking structure. And I remember we walked by the taxi stand, and I remember thinking, something feels a little bit off. And he just kept walking. We went into the parking structure, got to his very old car, which was not a taxi. And I just remember being like, should I say something? And then I was like, well, I did agree, so maybe he'll get mad at me. And then I just was like, you know what? This is a kind of New York taxi. It's like a special taxi. Like there'll be like a meter in there. There'll be like something to let me know. And so I opened the back door. He puts my bag in the trunk and he's like, no, sit in the front. So I like sit in the front in just this man's car, and it's just a regular car. And I'm suddenly like, okay, this is really bad. But then my brain was like, but you're in New York City, like things are different here. You're doing the right thing. You're getting a deal. You're not getting fleeced. Like all this like chatter in my head was, as a 19-year-old, was just like, this is how the locals do it. I just had convinced myself, and I was like, it's fine. And then we had never talked money. So I just, I was a college student, and I was just like, how much? And he said, how much do you want to pay? And I said, $35. And he was like, okay, this is great. I was like, actually, I am getting a deal, and like those tourist schmucks are going to stand in the taxi line, but I'm with a local. And then we start driving into the city, and then there's all these toll things, and then he asked me to pay for the toll, which I didn't think was weird. And then when I did, I was opening my wallet, and he was very much looking into my wallet. And then
Oh,
I did remember noticing that and being like, that's a little weird.
because you were about to be here for a month.
My college debit card, the max I could withdraw was like 300 or 350 or something, and I had that money, and I was really hoping to stretch that for at least 2 weeks. And then we started going into the city, and then he turned out to be a racist, and he was going race by race and saying everything that's wrong. He didn't get to Indians, but I just remember being like, oh my God, this is really bad. And I just had to keep agreeing. So he was using these slurs, and I was like, yes, like they are bleep. It was so bad.
You did not want to tell him to stop.
Yeah,
or you
oh my
didn't-
gosh. No, honestly, like I was like, I'm gonna die, but also I was like, I deserve to die because there were so many signs saying don't do this, and I didn't say anything. I was just like, yeah. So we're going, and then finally there's like a pause in the conversation. He's gone through most of the races, and then he goes, "What are you?" And I said, "Indian," and he was like, he was like, "You guys are fine." And then there was like another beat, and then he said, "But your food stinks." That's the worst he's gonna say. That's okay, maybe. And then I honestly was just like so anxious. Also, I didn't know where we were going. It looked like we were going into the city. I was staying in Pace University housing in the financial district, and I was like, "Well, that's good that we're going in," but I had no idea where we were. And then he did eventually drop me off, and by then my adrenaline was so high because I'd fantasized all these ways he was gonna kill me and all the things. And so then when he actually did drop me off where I was supposed to be, I just remember feeling this huge relief. And then he very casually opened the glove box and pulled out a serrated knife, and he was like, "You need to give me everything in your wallet." And I just said, yeah. They handed him everything, and he's like, "I'm gonna give you 30 seconds. I'm gonna pop the trunk, then I'm gonna drive off." And then I grabbed my suitcase, and the car started moving, and that was my welcome to New York.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just so much anxiety.
A
on
very
top of that.
stressful
Yeah.
day.
Now that we've started, also, I wanted to bring something up.
Yeah.
My partner went to college with you. He wanted me to say this. He
Yeah.
said he didn't know if you'd remember him. He's like, we were at Yale, same class. We did an exclusive science seminar called Perspectives on Science. Then I was class day co-chair, and he made a short film for our class. Wonder where that is. And then that was that. So I thought that was really wild. He was very much hated by everyone because he was very competitive. This is the stories I've heard. And just very anal about everything and wanted to be number one all the time and didn't make any friends. So I guess I've just come here to confirm or
Sounds
deny.
like an Ivy League archetype.
Yeah, there you go.
I can relate. Oh yeah, super
yeah.
competitive
Yeah.
and not making friends because of it.
Yeah, He said he didn't go to single because he eventually then went to Harvard Medical School. So in order to wanted to get into Yale, he was a nightmare in high school. This is everything I've heard. Then arrived at Yale and then basically didn't do anything, didn't go to any parties, just studied the entire time and judged anyone who didn't study to get into Harvard. Then got into Harvard, and then was the same at Harvard for 8-9 years as a resident and fellow. And
But now he's a creative collaborator.
Yes, he writes and directs now as well. Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he's sort of a day job, night job. Wow.
Yeah. He started doing medical consulting on television shows because medical dramas need real working physicians. He was a resident, and he just lied and said he was a physician, and no one fact checked it. He was 24 years old. They were like, "Sure, you're a doctor," and then just hired him. And then he got into sort of this world through that.
How did you guys meet?
We met on Raya.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if people know.
exclusive.
I don't think it's that exclusive anymore, but it was. Like, so you have to apply for it. You apply by just giving your Instagram handle, so it's very superficial. And then it's very mysterious who decides you can get on. I've heard many stories, but apparently it's 3 people.
Really? Just a
2 men and a
random
woman.
panel of.
I don't know who they are,
of
and
just
they used to
hot
decide.
people. They're
Exactly.
just so hot.
Yeah.
It was like
exactly.
it was so hot.
Yeah. We met on there, and by the time he joined, I'd been on there for a year. He joined when they were opening it up to more sort of people. And it was really funny because you have to link your Instagram to it, like I said, and he didn't have Instagram, but he had to create one to join. And so his Instagram was very catfishy because there were 9 photos on the grid. They were all posted the same day.
Oh my gosh.
But they were like the breakfast he ate, the walk he went, like all, and it was just like This just seems like insane. Like it feels sociopathic. But again, I said yes. So I've not grown at all. I'm just walking into really bad situations. I'll agree to
Causing
this.
the parallel between your getting mugged in a taxi cab and going on a date with a
it's
strange
a miracle I'm alive
Instagram.
in here. Yeah.
How, if you didn't have Instagram, how did you even get involved?
Someone who was an original member could give you like a one-time code, and you wouldn't have to go through the background check.
So you got grandfathered in.
They were hoping that there was not enough people on Raya. So when you join, you would kind of get to the end of it, and then you'd be like, oh, this person's cool. And they're like, in Portugal. You're like, that's not going to work. It just is like, and then they were like, oh, I'm at the end of this. There's no more.
These are my only options.
Yeah. And so basically they needed more people, I think. And so they went with this crazy strategy where they're like, hot people might have hot friends. Yoga, Pilates, fitness instructor that he knew she was on there. And then she got him this code, and then he got on there.
What is it like working with him as a co-collaborator?
Yeah, we never planned on working together because that to me seemed like a recipe for disaster. Because we were also doing well on our own, and it was like, why mix this up? Then COVID happened, and then I write as well, and he mostly at that time was only writing, and he had read some of my writing, and he was like, oh, this is good. And then COVID happened, and he was like, should we write a script together? And I thought, why do this? There's already a pandemic. What else do we need to do? And so he is very good with sort of like anything seems impossible. It doesn't seem that way to him. He's very much like, we'll figure it out. Like he doesn't think about like what it'll take to actually make something. So it was peak COVID, like maybe April of 2020. And he was like, should we shoot a movie on our phones? I was like, what? There's like, where, how, what are we going to? And he was like, let's just write something. And if we like it, then we'll just make it. And then I thought, okay. So then we started writing this script, and then we finished it very quickly in 5 days because we both write really fast. And then we kind of finished in this fever dream and thought, oh, I think it's maybe kind of good. And so then I kind of fell in love with the script, and I was like, oh, it'll be fun. But I was like, how are we going to make? We had never made a movie. And somehow we just came up with this number where I was on a TV show at the time, and it had been renewed, but we were waiting to shoot because of the COVID and everything. So I had money coming in. So I was like, I'm good putting $50,000 into this. And he had created this hit medical show that had just gone to syndication. And so he was like, okay, I'm going to put in 50,000. He's like, can we make a movie for 100 grand? And we didn't even know how you spend this money, what happens. So I hit up a few line producers and then gave them the script, and we're like, we have 100 grand. How would we make this practically into a movie? And then at the same time, one of my mentors was the Duplass brothers, Mark specifically. One of my early jobs, I had done a movie with them many years ago. And so we had tried collaborating on something later that I had written, but nothing had worked out. So I just was like on a lark, just also send him the script, and everyone was sitting at home. And so Mark read it very quickly, and he was like, we can make this movie. He was like, not for 100, for 150. He's like, I'll pay for it, and let's shoot it in a month. And so suddenly we're like, who's going to direct it? Because I was in every scene. And then he was like, Roshan was like, I'll direct it. He had never directed anything, but he went to Yale and Harvard. How hard can it be? And so then we went off on this adventure, and we made this movie. We shot it in 8 days. It was 96 pages in 8 days. And we had very little money. I learned so much. But one of the big things was, for a location, it was all kind of set in this one location. And we had a total budget of, I think, like $2,500, which is not a lot for a film location. You cannot really get anything. And then Airbnbs, all these places, it was so much COVID times that they were like, we're not going to have a bunch of strangers in our, like, it all seemed insane. Yeah. And so this amazing producer, Liz Cardenas, was like up all night on all these websites. And she was like, I found a horse ranch in Indio, California, like where Palm Springs is. And she was like, she'll give it to us for like $1,000 for all 8 days, like all in. And she's like, 2 of the crew members can sleep on the ranch. And so she's like, do you want to go scout it? So then we drove out there, and yeah, it was really far away. We drove out there with the DP, and it was a 45-acre ranch with all these animals, a lot of dogs, all this stuff. And then we saw the guest house. That's what she rents on Airbnb, and it was too small for shooting. And then we she overheard us saying that, and she's like, do you want to see my house? And it was right next door. It was pretty big. So we walk into her house, and she was a hoarder and of horse. So anything that had a horse on it, she couldn't throw away. In the movie, I end up crashing in this girl's apartment in the movie, and we just rewrote the script and we're like, made her a horse girl. And then we're like, we don't even have to really... We had to actually declutter because it was so busy that the DP was like, this is honestly too much production design. A lot of smells because you're with these animals, and it's like, there was, I think, 20 horses, 8 donkeys, 6 really cute dogs, but like the door was always open, so the donkeys were coming into the house, shitting in the house. The dogs were eating it was so bad. And it was also really hot, so just like the sweatiness of everything and the smells of the animal. And then she had like this pool that was never finished, so it was just dug out, and over the years there was no filtration, so all the rainwater had collected and it was green and there was algae, and the dogs would jump into that water, then come straight out into the house on the bed, on the couch. And so the couch, everything had such a smell, and everything had just kind of like layered on top of each other, that after a while the smell's so bad you don't even realize, right? Because you're just there shooting like on the bed, and then I'm like near the sheets, and I was like, oh my god, this is really. And like you would sit on something and like liquid would just come out because it had soaked into the fabric from his dog. So when you say what was the first experience, it was very stressful because we were making this movie, and then it, when we scouted it like 2-3 weeks before, it was like 95 degrees, and even that you sort of go, okay, I can get used to this. Of course, we started shooting, it was 120, there was a heat wave, the camera would overheat, there's no air conditioning, and it's COVID. It's like intense COVID, like August of 2020.
Right.
And so then this nurse from this facility in LA that SAG approved would have to drive with the COVID tests to Palm Springs, but this woman's house could not be found on a GPS. You had to put some because she was like off the grid or whatever. And then we would find her on the freeway, the nurse, this is before shooting, then be like, swab us. Then she would put the test in this ice thing so that they were fine. But then she had to like run it back to the lab, but it had to be processed before 6 p.m. or SAG would shut us down. I mean, it was really, I think we took on way more than, so that one was very stressful, just not the creative part, but just the practicality of also not wanting to get anyone sick, and everyone was so scared. And then the second movie, The Nice Anymore, that we made together was so much easier and better because we were not shooting in peak COVID. We were shooting in beautiful Vancouver. That one had another external. We were shooting. We were supposed to shoot, and then suddenly they were like, "There's going to be a SAG strike." No one was talking about that, and so suddenly we couldn't get the movie insured unless we shot in this very tight frame because they wouldn't insure it. This is all the fun of movie making. It's all bureaucratic, but that was the only issue with that.
And the plot of that one has some elements of your own relationship with
it does, yeah. Both of our lives, actually. It's adapted from a play originally that was put up maybe 11 years. Basically, my character, it's not a coming out story, I'm already out in the movie, but my character falls in love with Jonathan Groff's character. And
big fan.
Yes, yeah. Incredible. And I bring him home to my like quirky, wild family, and he has to sort of win them over. And they essentially want me to date someone of my own upbringing and not him. And then at the same time, as I'm sort of introducing him to my family, my sister reveals in the movie that she's getting a divorce. So it's kind of the two worst things happening to the parents, and it's them sort of meeting their children where they are, and then everyone sort of getting it together before a wedding at the end of it.
Wow, so it's a real family story with kind of a big changes for the parent characters.
It's like a very sort of like a good crying movie. Like it gets everyone sort of. It's interesting to see like how a lot of straight men cry at the movie, but it's almost always at the same scene where my dad character, who's played by this amazing actor Harish Patel, but he's very stoic and doesn't show any emotion, and then in one scene he shows like a sliver of emotion, and I'm like, wow, this is the thing that's like really getting in here.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
it does.
That's the straight man thing. It's like not being as in touch. Like,
and he's not even saying
your relationship
anything.
with your father.
Yeah, it's all the stuff, and you're like, okay.
Stoicism.
Yeah. They're like, that's the one, and it's like kind of funny.
Dad,
because
let's play catch with
exactly.
baseball.
It's like barely like a 30-second scene, and they're like, I'm a mess, and I'm like, wow, okay, great. I'm glad.
So has it like made your relationship like
that
stronger?
That one is, it's like a movie that I think both of us, I started in Hollywood in 2009 just auditioning, and I could have never imagined like having something that would be so much about my life experience, but like in a movie form, made in a way that other people might connect to. It felt good, like personal, in terms of like I just mostly felt very lucky because especially when COVID happened, I really began to think that I might not have this career anymore, because for a while, it feels not that far away, but I was like, how are we going to be on a set? There's like 50, 60 people tightly packed together. It just seemed like this job doesn't seem like it's going to survive. I remember having a real moment then in 2020 being like, oh man, I'm really going to miss it. And I was beginning to get a little jaded in 2019. and just feeling, you know, when you're like in the same sort of rhythm of things and you're like, oh yeah, this is a job and I'm doing it, and I'm starting to look at the call sheet being like, when am I going to finish? And like a little bit of that stuff has started creeping in. And in 2020 was a full reset where I was like, God, if I could do this again, like I would not take it for granted. And I appreciate every little part of it. And then also I think the thing that's kind of amazing about film sets is it's such a melting pot of people from all backgrounds, and especially now where everything politically feels so divided. Actually, on a movie set, it's a majority of people are just like hard labor workers. Like they're building, constructing. The transport drivers might not align with you, but it's everyone's kind of coming together to make it work. And you are forced to be together. Like you have these very artsy kind of artists, and then you have like these people that are building these sets and driving these trucks and lifting this equipment, and it's such a cool thing to me. Like I see it so differently now too, where it's like if we all don't work together, it doesn't work. Like the machine has to run with all these different people coming together, and I appreciate that also so much more now when I feel like we're more siloed and stuff. So all to say, when this movie was happening, it was that post-COVID period where I was already in my grateful mode, and then it felt very, very special to be like, I don't take this opportunity for granted. And I felt very present through the whole thing, which was good.
Yeah, it seems like it was like that COVID had that shift for you.
Yeah.
Where you switched from being like that drudgery of waiting, something's going to be done. Like, I don't know, if you kind of burnt out.
Yeah.
To definitely. Just really focusing on gratitude.
But not in like a LA, like I'm feeling grateful, but it's a way, like I genuinely feel it. Like it comes from within. It might go away soon, but it's been here for a little bit, but it feels really nice. But I think it's a thing of getting a little bit older too and not being as insecure.
What were some of the reasons that you were getting into that burnout?
I think it was just, I think what happened is I had done almost everything I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be in a studio movie. I had done that. I wanted to be on a series. I had done that. And so I think a lot of it was like, oh, now this is just all done. Like I had all these like random goals. And I think partially what was behind the goals was that I was like, oh, when I do that, I'll be really happy. Or when I do that, I'll be like, even like then I'll have like the kind of happiness that like I've been craving. And then it's just, you know, it doesn't change your life like you think it's gonna do and all that cliche stuff. But I think because all of it had been done and I didn't really have anything that I was checking off that list of things, that I just started being like, oh, now I just report here and I just do this over and over again.
I guess next year I'll just
do it again. Yeah.
Another studio movie.
And so that part I think started feeling, and then honestly, there was also this feeling like what I can really do has not been shown. And I think many artists feel that way. Like I have a friend who she's so talented and people have not seen what she can do. And she had this feeling that she's 45 and she was like, I've come to peace with the fact that it might never happen. Like, she works a lot, but she's like, that's not what I can really do. I was like, oh, I have more depth and I have other stuff. And then this movie, the one Nice Indian Boy, I really felt like it was using all my abilities at the same time. And so that also I didn't take for granted, because you be in LA long enough, there's so many talented people. No one's owed anything. There's so much luck involved. And so you just begin to be like, yeah, it doesn't happen for a lot of people. And still people would look at my career and be envious because I'm making a living doing this. But even I feel sometimes unfulfilled with some of that ability. So that, I think, movie felt special for that reason too, where I felt very much like no imposter syndrome. Like I just felt like, oh yeah, I can do this and now I have the opportunity to do it.
And how does that take you going forward? I mean, you were saying,
how
do I keep this like gratitude frame of mind?
What ended up happening in that movie is I felt a huge release, because I felt like, well, this is it now. I got to do it. So anything else is just gravy on top of like everything. And I do kind of feel that way, where I feel like, and that's what's cool about film, is it's kind of captured, and then you just go like, well, it was captured. And especially now, like it came out in the world, it was very well received and people got to see it. But I feel very much like, I feel less that hamster wheel feeling of like, what's next?
Now that you put out a really like soul nourishing piece, you kind of felt like a deeper satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that feeling of like achieving a lot and then being like, what is next? Like I similarly in 2019, I had this like a year where I achieved basically all of my goals,
right?
And just was like like even like at the peak moment, I just felt such a deep sense of emptiness and such a like I don't. So what am I just gonna go on a global comedy tour again next year?
So then, what did you do?
Well, COVID happened shortly after, and then I blew up my life by having an affair with a coworker, and
that was my plan B.
Yeah, that was plan B.
Was like, that's
so I wouldn't recommend that. Making a movie that is very deeply soul nourishing.
Affair or movie? Yeah, honestly, yeah.
We each have ways of dealing with
it's going to come to the surface. You can't run away from it.
Like now, I'm kind of trying to connect with what are my values, what sort of work like resonates with me. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do this show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different various rock bottoms that you've had. Some are very funny. If you had to describe, like, what's your singular rock bottom moment?
Yeah, I've had so many because if you sign up to act, you're signing up to just get rejected over and over again.
It's really bad for a people pleaser.
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe that's what you need to do, is you need to just push yourself into the deep end. And I built such a much more thick skin than I had before because of it. But one of my earliest rock bottoms was when I was 19 and I started trying to professionally audition. So I went to USC and then I came for business, and then I pitched to my parents this world of wanting to do this. And my dad, who's very practical, is like, how much money will you make when you graduate? And I was like, oh. And so then he was like, you need to explain to me like what is like how much money you will make. And he wasn't even like, you need to make this much. He was like, I need to know exactly, and then what's the growth year. And I was just like, no one thinks of acting that way. So then luckily at USC, a lot of child actors who like live in LA who were like on a Nickelodeon show for a few episodes, they go to college there. So they've been on TV and they've been in this world. So I asked them about stuff, and then they were like, try to get an agent, which I did. And then they said, submit yourself on these websites like LA Casting, all this stuff. So I was on LA Casting, 19 years old, and I would just submit for anything. I was interning over the summer, so I was in LA. And there was an audition that said non-union television pilot, which now I would know that's not real. Can't have a non-union scripted pilot, but sure. And I thought this is a real TV show. And then it said from one of the producers of Transformers, which 2008, it was very popular in the pop culture. I loved the first Transformers. Right. My love for Transformers is so deep that this is the first movie really had an impact. Then the second movie was coming out. I think I was a sophomore or something. And I watched the first movie in India. Then the second movie, I was in LA in college. And I remember walking by the quad at USC, and there was this like marketing person, I guess. I didn't realize. And they were like, do you like Transformers? And I said, yes. And then they were like, here, come to this AMC, blah, 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 in Culver City, and you're going to get to see like a test screening of the sequel. And I knew they had been shooting the sequel, and I was like, that's my most anticipated movie of all time at the time. So I said, whoa, I can watch this movie like 6 months, 7 months before it comes out. So excited, being like, I've heard these stories like in LA, sometimes you can watch these movies. We show up and they were like, it's not guaranteed you'll get in. It's like first come, first served. There's a really long line. So we're there in this line for an hour in the sun. And I'm just so excited that we're going to, because there's all these other people, we're going to watch this movie. And then Michael Bay walks by and literally we're like, oh my God, he's like here. And then eventually they open up the theater. We're like going inside and they were like, do you want to buy concessions? And we're like, yes, we're buying popcorn, all this stuff. And then we sit in this like big movie theater, and then Michael Bay comes out again and everyone's losing their mind. And then he was like, he starts talking. He's like, we were just filming down the street. I'm so excited. And I just remember being like, filming? Like, I thought we were watching the movie. Turns out it was a test for the trailer for the new movie. They were testing the trailer, not the full movie.
Oh, wow.
And so I stood in this line and drove all the way out here to watch like 2 minutes of footage and bought concessions and all this stuff. So basically, they start playing the trailer, great trailer, and everyone's really excited. But then you are like, you know, when you've waited in line for a ride for a long time, and so you're like, was it worth it? And you're just like, this was maybe not that great. And then he goes, he's like, do you want to see it again? And everyone's like, one more time. And we're like, I guess. So we watched the trailer again, and I was like, okay. And then he goes, you didn't think I was just going to show you the trailer, did you? And we were losing it. We were like, oh my God, we're going to watch the movie. Because the VFX was finished in the trailer. So I was like, this movie looks good to go.
Sure.
and the Paramount logo starts playing, and you're like, oh my God. And then it's the first movie. They just like played it again.
Oh, no. What?
But I sat and watched it again.
So when they said this was an indie Michael, you're thinking like, oh my God,
yeah. I
Michael
just said one
Milot?
of the producers of Transformers was like, it must be Michael. He just wants to be humble and not be named.
Yeah.
And so I basically was like, whoa, this is huge. And it just said, when you submit, all it said was Middle Eastern looking men. So I said, I can do that. So I clicked on that, submitted my materials, kept refreshing the college email. Eventually, like, they were like, we would love to have you audition. We'll send you the material, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be this time in Studio City. So I keep refreshing my email, don't get the material. And I'm really nervous because I want to be prepared and all of this stuff. It's my first professional audition, and I think it's going to be a TV show and all this stuff. So never get it. I reply back to the email, never got the material, and no one replies. So I decide I'll go an hour early, and it's not ideal, but I'll just try to look at it there and then hopefully memorize it. Or
Did you walk there?
this is, USC to Studio City.
Okay, yeah, that's a long walk.
It's over 60 minutes. And so I arrived there. It was in a regular apartment complex. I've never been to audition before, so I didn't know that that's weird. And then there was like a common resident area, and they had just set that up to be like the waiting room. And so I walked in, and this lady, very sweet lady, I said, I didn't get the material. She's like, oh, let me print it out for you. Prints it out on one piece of paper, but it's 4 pages worth of material. So she had made half font size, front and back.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, that's really weird. She was trying to really save money here. And so I started looking at the scene, and it's to play a terrorist.
Oh no.
And then not only am I playing a terrorist, I'm about to kill a white woman. So I've tied up this white woman, and there's a 4th of July parade, and I'm also going to bomb everyone at the parade. And then she's telling me like not to do this, and I'm pointing the AK-47 at her, and I'm like, the Quran tells me to kill. And then I keep mentioning the Quran. I'm not Muslim, but even I was like, this is really offensive. But I was like, I must get this. Like, I still was like, it's a TV show. And so I started looking at this really offensive material, and I'm just like, how do I need to do a good job, whatever. And then eventually they call me up to this person's apartment, like in the complex. Again, I don't think that's weird at the time. And then this lady goes, are you the one? She's like walking me to her apartment, and she's like, are you the one who called last night and said you're not going to come in because this is really offensive? And I was like, no, like that's great.
Oh,
She's like, you don't think it's offensive, right? I was like, no, it's not offensive. So we show up to her apartment, and then she hands me a plastic life-size AK-47.
Wow.
But it's like a children's toy. Like, who is buying this? And so she goes, you know how to use this, right? And I've never shot a gun or anything because I grew up in India. So I'm like, and then she's very annoyed because I don't know how to hold the AK-47. So then she hands me this AK-47, and then she says, okay. And also the other thing I forgot to mention is at the end of this 4-page audition scene, I get killed. So why at the time did I want to do such a good job? I thought it was about to be a series regular, but I literally get shot at the end of the scene. They shoot me, these snipers shoot me like through the window or something. And she goes, so you know the part where you like get shot and you get killed? I was like, yeah. She's like, so do you speak any other languages? And I said, yeah, I speak Hindi. She's like, whatever, just start praying in that language. So she's like, I'm going to shoot you. Then you just start praying in this language. And I was like, okay. And then she said, then I'm going to shoot you again. Then you die. She's like, don't die on the first bang. She would say bang. She's like, on the first bang, you start praying and keep praying till I say bang again, and then you die. And I said, okay. And then so again, I'm like, let's go. So I'm doing this very offensive speech about the Quran, tells me to kill, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes bang, and I start praying. And then she is letting me pray for, good 20 seconds. It's very uncomfortable. And then she goes bang again, and I really want to commit. So I was like, what would actually happen is probably like I would lose the gun from my hands. Like, I'm not going to hold this thing. So the gun kind of falls, and my body just falls on top of it, and I just hear it snap.
Oh.
And she had been so happy with this gun because when we first got there, she was like, isn't this amazing? Like, I got it from blah, 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 blah. Like, she was so excited. She's like, it's really changed the auditions because, when you can really have the prop. And I was like, yeah. No. And so then I'm like, maybe it's not that bad because, my whole body's on it. So I'm like, maybe it didn't break. Maybe it's like a little crack. And I look up and it's in 2 clean pieces.
Oh, no.
And she's just catatonic, and she goes down to the ground, and then she just picks up the 2 pieces, and then she just looks up at me and she says, you broke my fucking gun. And then I'm just like, I'm so sorry. And then she goes, leave. And so then I left, and literally, even after all of this, I'm like, I hope I get it. And I was so delusional. I just started telling people, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this pilot. Maybe like I can't come to this like college party. They're like, what? I said, yeah, it's like Michael Bay. I think like it's very NDA. Like I was just completely delusional, being like, I think I did a good job. And so I think the real rock bottom is after all of this that I still wanted her approval. So then I did email that email. And I said, did I get it? No one replied. Never heard anything.
Oh, man.
Again.
You're wanting it so bad that you're willing to
so
compromise the sense of
no values left.
sense of logic. Yeah.
Happily will play a terrorist.
So how did that, like, your own relationship to your values and your morals, like, evolve?
I can't really take credit for it because I feel very lucky because the business started changing a little bit as I was getting into it. I remember early on, I wanted to just be on NBC because at the time they had The Office. So Mindy was on there, and then they had Parks. Aziz was on there, and they had Community. Danny was on there. And I just remember thinking, NBC's the network that has one Indian person and like in these shows. And I was like, that's all my dream is to be on NBC. So I just like, it was such a narrow kind of like path or whatever that I truly was like, I'll do whatever. Because I just loved it so much. I was like, I'll do whatever I'll do. I truly didn't care enough. And I think also there's this a little bit of a delusion earlier where you feel like all these people, because they've made it, they're on the other side, they know what they're doing, but a lot of them don't know what they're doing also. And everyone's kind of just guessing. There's some people that really know what they're doing and they're very rich, Ryan Murphy, but most people are just kind of figuring it out. Like just because they have that job doesn't mean they're the expert in it. And so you, I think slowly begin seeing like your instincts are like, that doesn't seem like the right choice, but who am I to, like, you know, you're just like, this person's got the show made or whatever, and then you slowly see it not work out, and then you see other people it work out, and then just generally I think creative people who I got lucky to work with, like the Duplass brothers, who were like, what's your opinion, they started asking me, and then I would give it but never kind of volunteer it. And then eventually I think the business has changed, the world changed a little bit too, where people are a little bit more curious about your experience and less like, here's what I think it is. And they were like, do you think it would be like this and not be like this? And you can kind of speak up and say that more. So I can't really take credit for it. It's more that as it evolved around me, I started being like, okay, I can participate in this more. But I have no judgment. I think sometimes people have judgment for people who take certain jobs or whatever. With acting, it's like there's no plan. It's just you kind of do whatever is on the path, and then you cobble together some version of a career to survive. And then later, if you're lucky, you can say no and say, you know, pick things. But most actors, they just want to work, and so they're at the mercy of whatever the direction the wind is blowing, and you just kind of go there.
No, I know that you've talked about being like gay and Indian in Hollywood before. So was A Nice Indian Boy kind of this like capstone moment when it comes to like really expressing yourself?
I came out when I was 19, so before I started auditioning all this, I was out in my personal life, but someone when I was starting early, and I think they meant to give this advice in a not the way it's going to come out now, but they meant well, I guess. But what they said to me really stuck with me because I was so young too, because they said, oh, you have 2 strikes against you. And I said, what? And they said, well, you're Indian and you're gay. You can't have 2, like you can only pick one. Otherwise you'll never work. And it was a different time. So I think, to be honest, they were being kind of protective or something. But that really stuck with me. I was like, oh, I can't change the color of my skin and how I look. So I'll just kind of maybe try to hide this identity part more. So I would just, not really talk about it more at work. But it was more just that I felt like I'll never get to play a character like I did in A Nice Indian Boy, which is like, in many ways, I'm not suppressing any part of myself. It's like who I am, my full expression, like not my words, but like through this thing or whatever. But that's what feels really special about that movie, because it's both those sort of identities working together. And it almost requires you to be fully myself in order for it to be effective. Like if I hide either part of that, it actually doesn't work. The project requires it all, which is so rare. So that also, I think, felt very freeing. And it also felt like, it's changed a little bit. Like this can exist now, and I can have this opportunity now and stuff, which is really, really cool. What's been really interesting is actually when Rosh and I were making the movie, we were like, is this dated? Like, we were like, are we living in this because we live in our bubble? And we were just like, is this movie feel, because it was based on this play that was written 11 years ago. And then the amount of messages we both get from people who are struggling still in America and all over the world, and have either come out because of the movie or shown it to their parents, because the movie's very, and the play is really gentle to the parents. So usually like a lot of queer art is very kind of in your face, which is great because there's this feeling of like, fuck you if you don't, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of sex and there's like, which is all that is great. But then often the parents and those people are the villains. And in this movie, it gives them equal empathy and time as the lead characters. And you really understand the father, mother, all these people and like where they're coming from. And no one's really a villain in it. They all just are coming with their own baggage. And so parents and older people really melt with the movie because they don't feel attacked, I think, and they feel understood. So it's been this really interesting thing where people are using it to kind of have these conversations sometimes. And sometimes it's really wild. Roshan, I'm more like, I don't open the DMs as much, but he really engages there. And many times people will be like, okay, I'm going to come out, I'm going to take them to the movie theater. And then they'll reply back, being like, it didn't go well. And then it's like, well, it's like, sorry, but that a lot of times it did go well, or they felt like whatever. So it's it's this really interesting thing where Marsha and I say too is like, this is the movie we wish we had at a certain point in our lives, like not present day. I don't think I need it, but when I was having certain conversations with my parents and stuff. So it's not lost on me that I got the opportunity to kind of do that and everything and fully be myself, for better or worse.
And that's wonderfully inspiring that people are seeing that and connecting with it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, does it feel like a lot of pressure?
Yeah, I'm not looking at that. So I feel like it would be overwhelming if I looked at it. What was interesting about this movie, though, is we played at 15 different festivals before it came out to theaters, and we went to a lot of the festivals. And I've been in a lot of like really fun movies and stuff, and mostly people are like, I laughed and I had a good time. Sometimes people would be like, oh, that movie got me through like a difficult time, but it's not that often. This movie, it's afterwards, or even just yesterday, I was walking down the street and someone just came up to me and started crying. And I was like, oh, I think they're about to talk about this thing. And that is very interesting because it's new. And I do carry that emotion then sometimes, because I'll start crying and I'll be like, that was really intense. But at the festivals, it's such a crazy thing because someone is telling you a horrific story and you're crying, and then 5 seconds later someone's like, hi, can I get a photo? And it's just like you're going between like these two very you're like, oh, this person just told me their partner died of AIDS, but yes, let's get a selfie really fast. So that mix was really interesting. But yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, to be a part of something where people want to share their life, or it's affected them in a certain way where they want to share personal stories. But it's awkward also because at a certain point you're like, we have 7 minutes. How much can we get into?
It's kind of like a mirror for their own experience, and in these short snippets of being with someone, they're putting a lot onto you.
But it's really sweet too because they're overwhelmed, so they want to express it or whatever, and that is also, not everything is going to get people to do that. So you also are like, oh, something is happening here that it's connecting.
I think it's a really wonderful recognition of like the quality of the work and that it's caused such a big impact.
I feel like this movie and this experience has been such a unicorn. And so in a way, I have no expectations of it being recreated. It's almost like when I was in Deadpool, I was like, this doesn't happen. So now most people never have this. And I was like, oh, and Ryan would be very clear about that too, because it was a unicorn for his career too in many ways. So you just kind of go like, how lucky am I? I got to have that experience. I think people get stuck where they try to recreate it or chase it again.
Right.
I just don't think it's wise. It might happen again, but I just I'm very grateful for that experience. If it happens something like that again, I'll know to appreciate it. And if it doesn't, it's like, it was great that this happened. In my gratitude era, I feel like I'm one of those people who used to drink a lot and now doesn't drink, but loves to tell people they don't drink. So they're always like offering, they're like, and I'm just like, no, not for me. I stopped. And everyone's like, we hate you. Yeah. Say something other than you're grateful. Yeah, that's how I feel inside.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, Well, Karan, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Final question we ask all our guests is, what's one thing you would say to your younger self?
Start doing the skincare sunscreen earlier. Honestly, not too early because kids are doing it way too early now. But just start doing self-care and all that earlier.
When did you start?
I waited till I got adult acne.
Oh no.
Yeah, in 2016.
Oh no.
I grew up with great skin, and then they started putting makeup, lights, and suddenly it was breaking out all over the place. It was really bad.
Oh man.
And it was on a screen, and then I was like, this is really bad. And so I didn't do anything. I used to wash my face with water.
So what's your skincare routine now?
I found this lady from Serbia. Someone gave
Okay.
she's not taking new clients. Stop asking. And she basically, I went to a dermatologist, and in India, we don't really take medication that easily like you do here, where they'll just prescribe you crazy pills and it's like normal. There, they'll try sort of everything, and then it's a last resort, like, oh my God, you need antibiotics or whatever. So, yeah, so I went to a dermatologist. She's like, oh, yeah, Accutane. And I just remember being like, oh my God, that's quite. And then she explained all this. She gave the whole spiel, and I was like, this is. And then I was talking to someone, and then this actress, and she was like, no, I'm going to give you this number. Don't share it with anyone. Go to this lady. Went to this lady, and then she fixed it all. She fixed it. And
just
I
with
still go
creams
to her.
and things.
And she has a list of chemicals. Anything you're putting on your face, if it has even one of these chemicals, and you've never read, trust me, the ingredient list on these things, because it makes no sense. It's gibberish. Yeah. And so you're just like, I don't know what any of this is. And so she was like, don't use these if you're using, and it turns out I was using a bunch of things that had some of these things. And she's like, that's the first step. And then she basically told me which brands and stuff to use. But so much of self-care in general, like working out, sleep, nutrition, all that stuff. I did it. I think most people do it when your body starts failing you, like starting in the 30s. You're like, what's happening? And
Right.
you're like, oh, I guess. Nowadays I walk around and I'll see green foods like lettuce, and I'll be like, that looks good.
Yeah.
But you could not convince me like that lettuce looked good.
Yeah.
Like I wanted like food to be red, yellow. That's it, because I think your body's just like starving for nutrition or something, and you're just like, that looks good.
Please.
But all that stuff I didn't start till very late. So I grew up, especially with nutrition stuff, like I was a really big kid, and I have very strong sweet tooth. And my parents sent me to a school to lose weight, like a boarding school where we worked out 4 hours a day.
Wow.
And they restricted our food. So I've had this like really crazy relationship with all that stuff. So I think I found a much healthier balance now. But all of that life stuff, like sleep, self-care, all of that, I would tell my younger self.
Wonderful conversation, and thanks for being here.
So random.
And say hi to Roshan for
I will,
me.
yeah. That was just really, it's just he always wants to know if anyone cares or remembers him in any way, because he just had no friends.
I did. When I saw like a recent press photo of you guys, I got a like flashback of, because he
also had a
glasses in
glow
college,
up.
right?
He had a late in life glow up, because I looked at photos of him like Yale freshman sophomore year, not good.
No,
But
wouldn't
that's a
be
good thing,
smashing
because
like on Raya.
No, and that's a good thing actually. This is other life advice, is like you should date people who didn't know they are attractive. That's just such a good. It's just good, because especially if they went through those high school years not being attractive, and then they have the later glow up, because they're the ones. That's the good ones.
Have a grounding in other aspects of their personality.
Yeah, and because they thought they were ugly, you can just make them insecure so fast, and you can just be like, get them to do anything you want.
Wow, yeah, that's power right there.
Yeah. They don't have they're just a shell of a human inside, and you're just like, yeah.
Like, cast me in your next movie.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.